Well, welcome to another episode of Different Dadpreneurs, a show where we look under the hood of dadpreneurs that are intentionally crafting businesses and lifestyles. And super stoked to chat with my buddy Bear Johal today about his role as co-founder of Worthy Health, which is a very interesting business in an interesting niche, which we'll dive into in a sec. But stoked to have you, man.
Yeah, Fife, thanks for having me, man. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
So, let's just jump into what you're actually doing because it's an interesting business.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what do you do? What do you sell? Tell us about it.
yeah. So, I mean, the Coles notes for right now is I sell penis pumps. And it's like my favorite thing to say when we're at like a wedding or a dinner party or whatever. And it's like, oh, what do you do for work? And I was like, oh, I sell penis pumps. And then you just see the person's reaction. Usually they're like, nice, nice. But seriously. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I sell penis pumps. And you see them change. Like, oh. And then, I explain what it is. But yeah, it
Well, why don't we
totally.
dive into what it actually looks like? Because people probably have their own preconceptions of what you actually do for work and what you're
Yeah,
actually selling.
totally. Yeah. I mean, yeah, everyone just thinks Austin Powers. Like, no one made penis pumps more famous than Austin Powers, right? It's like the Swedish made. Oh, it's not mine, like that's always what people think about. It was like, and yeah, it's kind of like, well, I'm going to show you one right here. This is kind of the flagship product, if you will, the Osborne Erecate Esteem Manual. And I mean, yes, the penis pump, the medical term for it is a VED, a vacuum erection device, and it's primarily used, I would say probably 80% of our customers are post prostate cancer in need of penile rehab. So the methodology is called penile rehab. It's like bringing blood flow to the penis on a regular basis, and often when folks have it's usually after a radical prostatectomy. So they get prostate cancer, they have their prostate removed, and then there's all the scar tissue and nerve. Even though they try and spare as much nerves as possible, inevitably it's like you get incontinence and then you get erectile dysfunction. So yeah, usually the first line is they'll take pills, but then more often than not, they'll also have the urologist will have them on vacuum therapy, which is with a vacuum erection device. And yeah, we just stumbled upon this niche of like a medical grade one that wasn't easily available in Canada. So we've kind of got the distribution rights and then started making it more accessible by letting the urologists know that their patients can order it directly through us. We'll take care of the customer service, the training, everything just kind of online with videos. And the key is it's an FDA-approved Health Canada Class 1 medical device, whereas all the other ones are just sex toys that you can get at sex shops or on Amazon, way cheaper, but they're not medical grade. So then we came in with this one, and yeah, it's just one of those things in business, right? You just keep throwing darts on the wall, taking swings, and eventually one hits, and this happened to be the one that hit because yeah, my business owner I've been trying for a while. We did like because I was previously in the pharmacy and home healthcare space. That was the family business, which we'll get into in a bit. But we just thought, okay, wow, we can get like wheelchairs or cuffs or braces, like knee and elbow braces online, and that'd be great. But then you realize like everyone's doing that, and like the margins are razor thin, and it's like we tried it and failed, and we tried it a couple other ones, and just running tests. And then this one was a test. We just had the domain and started running it. And again, we got super lucky because Osborne, and this is a quick little fun story. Like the guy who invented the penis pump, his name was Julian Osborne. He was a doctor. This was back in like the 60s. So he like literally invented the penis pump. And like Osborne in like penis pumps were like vacuum therapy for whatever reason is way bigger in Europe because he was this Dutch guy who invented it. And Europe just has this kind of flair of like less drugs, more like holistic health. So it is bigger over there. And then, but even the urologists and whatnot, like Osborne's kind of like, it's kind of like Kleenex or Band-Aid or, like that kind of thing. Like the Osborne is like a term used for like just a medical penis pump. Oh, you should use an Osborne. So we got super lucky there. And it just happened to be where Canada's a small market and the manufacturers weren't super concerned with it. And we kind of came in and we're distributors now, but we are like the Canadian arm of Tim Medical who makes it. Yeah.
Super cool, man.
Yeah.
And how long have you been in it? How long have you guys been running with this? Because you've been testing some other things over the last few years. How
Yeah.
long has it actually been?
So Taylor and I, we bought the distribution rights for Osbon Canada in May of 2022. So it's been like almost 2.5 years. Basically, I call it 2.5 years. It'll be 2.5 years next month. So yeah, 2.5 years. And I left my full-time job about, I can't remember now, maybe 2 years or a year and a half ago, around there. And that was kind of hectic. You're doing both at once. So your day job, you're doing this on the side. And then it just, it's like I was, again, super lucky there, where I think if I'd come in and that was like my sole source of income, which is for most entrepreneurs, I do think my decision to making would have been completely different. Whereas like when I had my full-time job and I was doing this, and we were happy to be, okay, sweet, money comes in here. Okay, so we'll just spend that on a site. Oh, we'll just spend that on SEO. And we were just like spending without worrying about it at the start because we could. And then all of a sudden, once it was like, okay, shit, we're making good money. And a lot of those spends were more like investments, like one time, like building a site, building that initial SEO framework. And then it was like, okay, sweet. Like you look at the numbers and it's like, well, I'm getting, this much. This is my salary currently at this job. I can like almost pay myself this. And now I own this company. And it's like, the potential is huge. Whereas before I was in the family business managing, pharmacies and doing like a lot of stuff I didn't want to be doing, like HR and firing people and like our benefits plans and like, you know, just so much of that like corporate stuff. And I was like, man, what am I doing here? And now it's like we're a team of like one, basically. Like, yeah, I talk to Taylor like, a couple times a week, but it's basically me. Like if you look in my like my basement here, it's like everything, all the fulfillment comes out of here. Like I am the customer service and I do it all. And I can do it really efficiently as time goes on. And I'm like, so it's kind of like a mini goal of mine is like, I want to like see if I can do this without hiring anyone. Reading this book, actually, is really good business book called just my Kindle here real quick because it's awesome. And it's about like, why are we obsessed with growth when, what if you just have $1 million business and you're the only person working in it?
Yeah.
It's called Company of One by Paul Jarvis. So yeah,
Okay.
it's really good. So anyways.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a big flex that people want to grow because it's cool. But I've
Hmm.
talked to so many people where they've grown, they've tried that track, and then they actually go backwards, cut things away, go back to the simpler model, less
Yeah.
people, less problems, and it ends up being more profitable and less headaches in a lot of ways. So that's something I wanted to touch on with you as a theme. I know you to be somebody very focused on lifestyle and balance. How have you been making decisions now that you're full time in this? And actually, before we get there, love to chat a little bit more about that ability to transition where you still had a salary, because I think that does make the context of what you jump into very different.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So like,
Like, what would you share with somebody that's currently working and they're trying to start something? What's the insight for you that you would share with somebody else in terms of that transition and how you would think through that?
I mean, it sounds cliche, but it's like you just start and you kind of do it on the side, like the old, like the side hustle, right? And like that's really all it is. And it's kind of fun, right? Like, and it to me, it was like an outlet too, because I was like, I think a lot of people aren't, it's like they're like a square peg in a round hole. They're not really designed for the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Like, yeah, you get security, yeah, you get like a steady paycheck, but I mean, you only have one life. And if you're not like, I think a lot of people, I speak about myself, but like I know a lot of friends too, and also have friends who like are totally okay with like government type jobs, and it's like they have their hobbies outside of work and they just love the security. They know that like the stress of not knowing where your next paycheck is coming from. They're like, no, can't do it. I'll do this. It's like, yeah, fair. But then a lot of people, and for me, I started to realize now that I work fully for myself, it's like I don't need to like force myself to work because I'm like, oh, I need to work to, to afford this lifestyle and to like I mean, obviously pay the bills, but also like if I don't do it, no one will. So it's just like it's totally different. But yeah, starting just on the side and being like, okay, can this make money? Is there a market here? And yeah, is this a feasible business? And it's like just testing your hypothesis. Usually we think, yeah, again, it comes like penis pumps. Like no one would have thought, myself included, that it would be, you know, the business that it is, right? It's like it seems so random and it is so niche, but you know, there's 30,000 men in Canada who get prostate cancer every year. And this is recognized now by the Canadian Urology Association. Second line defense for ED, or not defense, whatever it is, second line therapy for ED is vacuum. So it's like, all right, pills are number one, and then it comes vacuum, and then comes penile implants. So that's like the clinical guideline. So it's just like, once you start to get in this space, like, oh wow, there is a market here. But you wouldn't know unless you got into it. And also, like, the devices are not cheap. Right? Our cheapest pump is $500, and then we sell a device that's like $900, which is for a different condition. But still, like, I never thought that people would pay that. I remember being like, with our RestoreX device, it's for Peyronie's disease, and it was like, oh, I remember when I got the pricing, I'm like, oh, there's no way anyone would ever pay $1,000 for a device. But then, you know, sure enough, we started getting more and more requests. Okay, we'll buy 3 of them. I was like, because, you know, a year ago, we were breaking even every month. Because, like, I probably came on full time a little bit early, I would say. I would recommend, you know, maybe having, but you know what? I don't know. It worked out. But, like, maybe having a little bit more money in the bank so that you could, like, whereas we were breaking even every month. So it was just like, okay, we'll buy a couple of these Restore X's here, and then you run with it. And then now we sell, like, you know, a decent amount of them. But yeah, so
Yeah.
it's,
Well, I think just
yeah.
listening to you a little bit, I reflecting on my own journey a little. I burned the ships. I just jumped off, burned the ships. I was in burnout. So thinking about trying to build something on the side, I just didn't have the bandwidth
Mm,
to do
yeah.
it. And looking back on it, if I was to do it again, I would try and set myself up in a way that I did have more of a runway and have something, because your decision making is different early on. You can invest a little bit differently. You can be a little bit more strategic. You're not as scarcity or survival minded.
Hmm.
And I think that being able to test out your product market fit and validate things a little bit before you've burned the ships, I think is pretty smart.
Yeah. Yeah. It would definitely something I would recommend. And kind of did it by accident, mainly because I never thought that I would go full time in this. I was like, okay, so we have a little side biz, and we're like, oh, nice. Yeah, this can, here, like, oh, this can add a couple grand a month once all the debt's paid off, and then yeah, we can, you know, look for other ones, and then it just kind of just kept growing, kept growing, kept growing. We essentially like 10x the sales in 2 years, which is like crazy to think about, and the margins were already pretty good. So it's like, yeah, it's like a healthy little business.
And how are you going about sales? Because we had a conversation recently, and
Yeah,
you're
yeah. Oh man, I am like, it's funny. I talked to a lot of my other like e-commerce buddies, and they're like marketing background. And even though I did my degree in marketing, I hate marketing. Like today, I had to do. That's why I went to the gym, and that's why I worked out this morning. Is because I'm like, I'll do anything to like motivate myself to then grind through like the marketing aspect. I hate it. Like writing email campaigns and like optimizing our AdWords, and yeah, today was a lot of email campaigns, like abandoned cart campaigns, all those little things you can do on Shopify. Some people love it. They're just like, oh man, I bid on this, but it's all numbers driven, and I'm like, oh man, this sucks. The nice thing about ours is that, like, you know, you don't need to sell like 1,000 widgets per month. That's where the marketing I feel like is huge. It's like we just need to sell like, you know, like 50 widgets a month, and at $500 a pop, we're laughing. Well, I mean, for our overhead and our costs, but yeah, we. Oh yeah, so sales. Sorry, I got sidetracked. So sales, it's like, yeah, I go old school, man. I like find out where all the urologists are in Canada, and I just slowly cold call them and let them know, hey, yeah, I'm the owner of Osbon Canada. You know, you kind of tweak the spiel over time, and just try and tee up a meeting with the urologist. Usually it's classic medical sales where the gatekeeper is like the MOA, and they're gonna be like, okay, yeah, like, we can maybe set up a meeting. You know, you got to offer some value to them. And at first it was just like, you're just running and gunning. Now I've started to, make these inroads. There's actually not a lot of them. And it's so word of mouth too, right? It's like, oh, you've got some sales today from urologists I've never even met. And they're just like recommending their patients because they'll talk to other urologists and they'll be like, oh yeah, like the Osbon. So long story short, I'll like cold call the clinics, set up a meeting with the urologist if I can. If not, I'll just like send them a demo unit and pamphlets and then just follow up with them. And our big sell is that like I started to learn like what's our value we can add to them because they can't take incentives and it's their time is their most valuable resource in the medical world, especially for a specialist. Like they're just so strapped for time. Their times are so much money. And in Canada, you have these huge wait lists, and it's like, I got all these consults. It's like, well, what can I do? It's okay. Well, if you refer them if you want them on vacuum therapy, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but if you want them on vacuum therapy, you send them our way. Like, we'll take care of all the customer service, all the training, all the warranty, all the like troubleshooting. And they love that because, okay, this is a medical product. I'm not just sending them to some sex store, which I know a lot of them feel bad to do. And just because they don't know what the patients get. They know this is a reputable product. It's scientifically validated. It's evidence-based. And yeah, when they come to us, it's like we'll ship it directly to them in discreet packaging. We have all the training videos, the full setup, and then we have a patient success team who will like help with them. And then if it really needs to get escalated, we'll send them to the manufacturer who actually has like medical staff. So yeah, there's so many things we can do, but ultimately it's freeing up the time of the urologist and with the promise of patient care, which is huge for us. And that's why it's like I'd rather do higher ticket items, less sales, not less sales, but like quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what we had talked about and I think is really cool is people are so inundated with the internet marketing stuff, digital advertising's everywhere. Just going old school really works, especially in a niche market where there's so much word of mouth. It is a smaller community and that relationship building goes such a long way. I was chatting with a guy this morning and he actually sold a pretty sizable, I think it was like a SaaS company. And he said most of his work still came from word of mouth for people he met in person. Like that kind of drove a lot of it. It might not have been SaaS, it might have been more copywriting stuff, but like in an online world that he played in, a lot of his work came from word of mouth and in-person referrals.
Yeah.
Which is
yeah. I know it's
irreplaceable.
huge. It's huge. And again, it's like one of those cliches, but when you're in it, you're like, okay, I get it now, right? And like, and you also got to play to your strengths. Like I feel like when I'm like in front of a computer, like trying to do all this like marketing, it's like, I'll do it. And I think I understand like the high level of it, but it's not something that I'm like passionate about. Whereas I do actually like meeting with these urologists and talk with them, and, like helping them problem solve and like, and just, yeah, like it's connecting with people. For me, it's in my wheelhouse. Yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, you got to, especially if you're a solopreneur, you got to have range, but you still got to play to your strengths as much as you can.
Otherwise, you're going to burn out.
Yeah, exactly.
At what point did you become a dad in this journey?
Yeah, that was the crazy thing. Yeah, I became a dad, I guess it was 5 months ago now. So pretty much smack in like the heart of the entrepreneur journey. I think like, yeah, I'll never forget actually. It was about a year ago when BizWorld called me and it was like, oh, like, yeah, like we're looking at the bank balance, and I'd gone full time in the company, give myself like, a decent salary, and it was just like, oh shit, we gotta pay a bit of tax here and all this and this, and it was like, you gotta take a haircut. Well, it was a mutual decision. I was like, okay, all right, I'll gotta take a haircut here because you believe in the business, and it's like you got to keep that cash flow going. So I took like a haircut in the business, and then like a couple weeks later, find out my wife's pregnant, and it was like, oh shit, like what have I done here? I've left like a safe job with the family biz, and I'm striking out on my own penis pumps, taking a huge risk. Yeah, it was this very, very like scary moment, but that every entrepreneur experiences. Some people don't like it, whereas it was like, okay, that was like motivating. It was like, I got to double down, got to dig deep. And it was like, I remember I was like, I'm going to have a baby in like 9 months here, or my wife is, but I'm gonna be a dad in 9 months. No, talking to friends, it was like, yeah, that last, yeah, that last trimester even is like hard for both. It's like, all right, so I remember it was like every other week I was traveling, and because that was my, what can I do? Okay, I gotta sell, and like see if this is a viable business. And it was just pounding the pavement, but it was awesome too. Like I think back at it, I was like, oh man, that was a ride. And it was just like Calgary, Edmonton, Victoria, Toronto, Ottawa, Halifax, just like hammering the Canada, just meeting with some of them. And like that was the thing, is like some of them I'm away, like, oh, so and so can't meet. And I'd be like, okay, no worries. And then all of a sudden I'd show up. And what are they gonna do? Like what are they gonna do? Like, oh, you came from Vancouver, and then it's just like look on their face, like, okay, oh yeah, let me see if he has some time here. And it wasn't like in a rude way. It was okay, I'm meeting with this geologist. This one MOA said he doesn't meet with the reps. So, well, I'm not a rep, I'm the owner. I just wanted to chat with them. And you just show up anyway. It was just, yeah, it was just that. Being a dad, knowing you're gonna be a dad, it was like, yeah, it was scary for sure. Because it was like, yeah.
How long did it take you to kind of process that you were going to become a dad and make sense of that? Because I feel like it's a weird transition.
It is.
And I was curious about like what that processing looked like for you in terms of making sense of it all, and maybe where you're at right now. Because I think it's probably a continuation. It's not just...
definitely is a continuation, man. Honestly, like I think it's very different. It's often different for the guy, because you're not like carrying this baby, you're not pregnant, you're just kind of like, oh nice, this is gonna happen, and all of a sudden it's like boom, then the baby's born. I would feel like it was like more like when the baby was born, and it was like then I doubled down again. Well, I doubled down again right before Hudson was born, and it was like, okay, I gotta go. And then like now it's like being way more efficient with my time, and still motivated. It's like, oh wow, now like, yeah, I gotta create this. But the processing was just an ongoing thing.
So Hudson's now you said 5 months old?
5 months, yeah. I have 5 months next week.
What are you doing differently in the business? Like, how has having a kid changed how you run and work in the business?
A ton. Because like I think it's really like affirmed what's important to me, and I think I was actually listening to this audio book called Your Next 5 Moves, and the chapter was really good, and I really resonated with it, where it was like, what do you in particular, like what does Bear Johal want in life? And I think when I was in like, in school, it was like, oh man, like, I remember Facebook was coming out. It's like you see Mark Zuckerberg, I'm like, oh, I want to do that. Like, oh yeah, like Steve Jobs, and you just get like tied up in that. You really start to peel back, like look behind the hood of that, and it's like, wow, the amount of like anything in life, the money you have to give to get that, family, friends, a regular life, like all of that. And now that I'm a dad, it's like what's important to me is like, being present with my son. I mean, the cliche they use, like, oh, at his little league games. But for me, it's like, yeah, that if whatever sport he plays, hopefully it's hockey. Again, at his hockey games, that always practices, coaching his teams, being like super involved, like being at family dinner every single night, going on family trips. So for me, it's like I just want to have a good, efficient business that allows me that frees up my time. That to me is super motivating now. So it's like, it allows me to get through those hard times, like, bang through those cold call lists, do those follow-ups. I had a business trip last week because, Toronto is a huge spot for us. And before I would go for 4 days, 4 nights kind of thing, because, it's a ton of meetings. Whereas last time I went, it was 15 meetings in 2 days, 2 nights, because it was like, otherwise you're leaving your wife alone with your son, and you got to be cognizant of that. And also you don't want to miss like, I was like, man, I don't want to be away from this kid. Like every single day he's changing, and he's like, it's like, even when I came back, I was like, oh man, he looks different. And it was 2 days. So I'm like, okay, like that's something to keep in mind. Yeah, it totally changed it. And also my own health too. And I've talked to other dads about this. I'm like very, very, and we've talked about this, very anti dad bod. It's like, you should do the opposite when you have a kid. You should be working out more, training like for life, eating healthier, because now you have an offspring to stay healthy for. They need you to be active. Like they need you to be functional. They need you to be like, and you need longevity, right? You don't want to be like that overweight dad who can't even, lace up his skates with his kid when he's like, 14 and wants to like rip the puck around. And like, our generation, we're having kids a little older. So I think we have a responsibility to be able to move and perform at a high physical level in our 50s, 60s, 50s and 60s. And for me, it's like, why not 70s? So I have this mini goal, because like this whole side of my office is all like a work whiteboard, and this is all like a health and fitness whiteboard. And my goal is to be more healthy at 40 than I was at 30. And when I was 30, I measured all like my deadlift, my mile, my 40-yard dash. So I have all that written down. Now it's like, can I exceed that when I'm 40? And then my goal then is to maintain that at 50, because you're probably not going to go up at 50, but maintain that at 50, and then be like, okay, maybe I can maintain 90% of that by 60. And to me, I'm like, man, that's motivating. But that takes time, it takes dedication. And like if you're, working on Wall Street, or like a lawyer who's working like 80
What
hours.
does that actually look like implementation wise for you in terms of like a week or a day? Like how are you managing to fit that in? How much are you exercising?
Probably like 10 times a week, I would say. Yeah. I mean, like, do you want to know like what my average week looks like? Or you want to know what this week looks like?
I think it's illuminating to hear how other people manage their time, especially self-care. I think gets dropped. So exercise and those hobbies. And you're definitely somebody that I think has done a really good job with being intentional and crafting that time. So there's always a spectrum, and I think it's interesting to hear other people like how they actually break it down. Like what does that actually look like?
Yeah. So for like right now, at this point in the year, it'll be like 3 strength workouts, some heavy strength training, push pull legs. That's 3 days, and then I have a thing where I have to be on the ice 3 times a week. So that's cardio, that's sport, that's like fast twitch. So that's 3 times a week, and then I'll usually mix in a like a bodybuilding day or whatever, just like kind of like an arms shoulders day just for shits, and then just look at my schedule. 1, 2, 3, yeah, and then that's pretty much it. Yeah, like a
And
couple
also probably
other
some cold dips in there as we do.
2 to 3 cold dips a week. Probably like 2 right now, but found a nice little spot nearby that's like dippable now, because it's been raining like crazy here in North Van, Vancouver. So yeah, I'll mix in that, and again, yeah, yeah, sorry.
And I want to call out too that that's probably only possible because of the setup that you have with your wife. How do both of you manage that? Because you're both pretty health conscious for you to be able to get that kind of time.
That's been a work in progress for sure. I think with like Hudson's like sleep training and his nap scheduling, we've had to work around that. Carly will often go to the gym, and then I'll watch him in the evening. And for me, it's kind of like I work from probably like 7 to 4 like ish right now, but I'll take like a couple hours in the middle of the day to work out, because I need that like brain break. And then she'll go, once I'm done at 4, I come upstairs, take over Hudson, and she'll go to the gym. But now we're kind of tweaking. She likes to work out in the morning as well, or like instead maybe, because she kind of gets fried by the end of the day. So then it's like, okay, maybe I'll take a breakfast break, and then you can come down. Because right now my office is the gym, so it's like it's kind of hard. But yeah, as you know, like with parenting, you got to be a good team. It's huge.
And it changes like
Yeah.
as kids get older, that their schedule changes, and you have to work around that. But I don't know. I have a similar goal. I've called it Operation Find Cheese. It's like gets better with age. So it's like got to get healthier, got to get stronger.
Yeah.
Feel like I'm actually doing a pretty good job of that. Started playing soccer again. So I'm super sore, but CrossFit. But yeah, I think it's hard, but that payoff is huge long term. Which
definitely.
A question that was popping up for me as I was listening was, what have you learned from friends or your dad about how you want to be a dad and show up?
Yeah, that's That's a good question. I feel like I mean, I don't know how your dad was, but my dad is more like the old school dad from like his generation, where, my mom did like all the child care as like a baby, and then he worked, she was a stay-at-home mom, and that was kind of like the setup. I think our generation is way different. Part of it's out of necessity because the cost of living, where you can't, I mean, to go on one income is like super hard. And then also it's like now that I'm in it, man, like I love being involved from day zero, right? Like with Hudson, it's like prior to having prior to Hudson being born, I used to work at a co-working space, and I was there like 3 days a week minimum. I'd do like work from home Wednesday as like a day, and then Fridays usually. So it was like 2 days a week. Those are like my unproductive days. I'd kind of do like chores and like random stuff. I mean, Fridays is like whatever, right? In my view, but like especially in the medical world, like most of the doctor's offices are closed Friday anyway. But even then, but then now it's like I had the co-working space for like I canceled it, and I went once last month because I canceled it because I'm like I like being able to like at breakfast kind of go up and chat with Hudson or like hang out with him, start chatting, but like and then like take a little break between calls, go upstairs while he's up and just like hang out with him for a bit. That's huge. It's huge. But back to your question about dads, it's like I think everyone has their own kind of
I think that's like why I like asking that question is it's hard to see under the hood of how other guys
yeah.
are a dad. And I was just curious what you've noticed growing up or with close friends about how they're doing things, what you admire, you're kind of taking and learning, or things where you're like, I don't want to do that, like
Yeah.
anti-role model kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. No, totally. Like I one of our buddies, or one of my buddies, he like what I admire is the ones who are like totally capable of like being with, an infant all day, no problem, and bringing their infant or toddler to like social events. Whether it's like, I remember one buddy like bringing his little daughter to the beach solo because he wanted to go to the beach and hang out with the boys and hang out with friends and play volleyball or watch volleyball. I can't really play with a kid, but it's like, bring the child out. And I thought, oh, that's cool. And now that I'm in it, I'm like, oh, that's admirable because that's freedom. Because when you have a kid, you lose a lot of freedom. And yeah, you can be like, you could be like, oh, wife, I'm gonna go do my thing. But then that comes at a cost. Right? That means she's at home with the child, resentment grows, and that stuff compounds over time. We had a happy hour with some buddies, and I just brought Hudson, just chucked him in the carrier, brought a bottle, and it's like, and like we do the dad hikes. I bring him. It's like now instead of it being like, oh, I'm out doing something, you have a bit of guilt, and if you don't, then it's just gonna add up. But when you bring the kid, it's like, man, you're free. You have your child, and as a bonus, he's getting exposed to new social scenarios. He's not just like cocooned in the house. He's kind of like, and I love watching his face. I mean, he's 5 months old, but he's looking around. Oh, what's going on? Like, you don't have to like. Sometimes you feel bad, just like, oh, he's at home, and you're like like a little rattle or whatever. You leave him like doing his thing on like a swing or whatever. But here it's like, hey man, I'm just chatting with friends, and you're just engaged by like the world. So it's cool. And that was again advice that another buddy, our friend Paul Kunar gave me was like my biggest advice is make sure that your baby takes the bottle because that will give you freedom and it'll give your wife freedom too. And I was kind of like, oh yeah. And then he kept saying it, and I was like, oh okay, yeah. And he told me more about it. I was like, okay. Now I'm in. I'm like, oh man, like Hudson never misses a day because that's what happens. People like do like 5, 6 days in a row and don't give the baby the bottle, and they don't want to take it anymore. And I don't blame him. Like straight from the source is always going to be better, but he takes both. He's a good eater. Yeah, it gives me that. Gives us both that freedom. Like Carly can leave for like she's got book club tonight for a few hours, and like me and Hudson will hang. We might even like cruise to Winners. You never know. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
good.
It opens up a lot when you have that flexibility.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your experience in a family business. I know that can be
Ooh. Yeah.
touchy, but just like I think a lot of people are actually in a family business. There's a lot of dynamics to navigate. Curious to know kind of what your top insights were that you would share with somebody else that's maybe stepping into a family business or is already in one that where maybe lessons hard learned or that you wish you had earlier on?
Yeah. So the biggest thing I learned was that, yeah, with the family business, the business is the reason why, and this, and we ended up hiring a coach for our family business, and he was great, but still couldn't save it. But it was like the reason why it's called family business, not business family, because like the family dynamics are always gonna come first. Doesn't matter if you're like, running Microsoft or it's like a, you know, your local corner store. Like the family's always going to come first. And we had some family dynamics that maybe, through different events, there was just a lot of layers, and that, started to come to the forefront. And it's hard, right? And also like I feel like even with my dad, it's like his life was the business, I mean, he's still running his business. His life like is the business. I mean, he loves his kids, loves his family, but the business is always ever known. And I think I look at that and I'm like, like I think we have a responsibility to learn from our parents. I think that's kind of the evolution of time, is like we learn from like maybe things that we want to improve on. And that would be one of them, because it's like if you just dive into your business and that's your life, and you're like, okay, I have kids, and then they're just going to come in and then they're going to work for the business. But like, it doesn't necessarily work like that, like your kids are going to be your kids first. That father-son relationship should always come first. Yeah, it's complex. And I think me and my brothers, we kind of had the foresight to be like, okay, yeah, like maybe it's better for the family relationship, like if I just kind of, take a little step back. And it was, because you were getting frustrated, and it was just like, it's hard though. I really resonate with people. And it's funny, whenever I have friends who work in the family business or worked past tense in the family business, it's like you immediately have this like connection. It's kind of like having a kid, but it's like how you're like, oh, family business, and you kind of like have this like nod, and it's like, oh yeah, because it's really hard. I think it's when done well, it's super powerful. Like generational wealth is like is is huge. A lot of these family businesses, like it's like they just keep growing over generations, but it's tricky. It's definitely tricky, and yeah, it was challenging. Yeah.
I was having a conversation with somebody a week ago, and he was in a family business for a period of time. And he said, which I thought was interesting, I didn't get a chance to dive into it with him, but he said, it doesn't matter who would be the best CEO. The family dynamic should dictate who's in that seat. So if the alpha or like the older brother is that older sibling and that's the dynamic, they need to be in that seat. And I was
Yeah.
really curious to challenge that and get like more in the weeds and learn more about where that came from. But I thought that was really interesting that he shared that, and was curious just to get your thoughts if you'd agree or challenge back.
I mean, I've actually never thought of that, but I'd probably agree with that, because again, the family dynamics are going to come first, and the business is second. It's all going to be like, oh, who's the best fit for the CEO? Because the family dynamics run way deeper than this like business. So
Because I
yeah,
thought
I
about it
would.
after. It's like somebody like the younger brother might be the most skilled person to be in that CEO seat,
Hmm.
but those sibling rivalries and dynamics, if they're at play, would they supersede that skill set and ability to lead
Totally, yeah.
the older brothers? And how does that play out? So yeah, anyways, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. No, I definitely think there's merit to that. Yeah. No, if family business is hard, I think, especially like, I think it's really hard for the father to, and this is what our coach was trying to, you know, get my dad to like open up to. It's like it's hard for the father just to not be the father, and to be like, these are my sons, these are like very qualified partners. And yeah, it wasn't, my dad wasn't able to do it. He just could not, you know, make that like differentiation. And I think a lot of dads can't. And like I don't even know if we'll be able to, right? Like who knows? Like you and I might have like set up our businesses that become like, we're, potentially, Maisie or Hudson could like, but then it's like if we always treat them like kids, and which is like what I felt, then they're never gonna be able to like flourish. And then like that was super motivating for me when I broke out on my own. It was like, oh wow, I can like run and gun with this, like, and it was no longer like, because I think you need as an entrepreneur, bring it back to the dadpreneurs, you need that like, fire to like get through that uncertainty. For me, it was like, I need to make this even more so than with Husband's One. I was like, I need to make Osbon work. I'm gonna try my absolute hardest because I don't want to go back to the family biz, dude. Like that's honestly what I was thinking. And then yeah, when Hudson was like coming around, it was okay. And then that was like added motivation. And now I'm like, man, I like have a home gym. I'm able to play hockey 3 times, or I'll be on the ice 3 times a week and still see my son and making more money than I was in the family biz. I want to protect this lifestyle. That's what keeps me like pushing, because it's like I don't need to make millions and millions of dollars. I'm trying to figure out what my number is though. Unfortunately, it is rather high where we live in North Van. If you want to buy a house in North Van, you got to make a lot of money. But then it also comes to like higher things. Like, is it even worth staying in North Van? Like, how much am I gonna have to sacrifice? Am I gonna have to like, and like that's what like Carly and I talk about. And like when you're a business owner, you're kind of like, and for an entrepreneur, all my dad's businesses were like brick and mortar, and you're totally tied to it. And that was another motivator for me, was to have an online business that I could travel, work from anywhere. I wasn't rooted to Vancouver. I could like, so yeah, you see little things like that, and again, that's motivating. It's motivating to have a business where you have that flexibility, because that's important to me. And I think as an entrepreneur, you got to be true to yourself. Like, what is important to you, not to other people? That would be my most salient advice, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which can be really hard to figure out.
Yeah.
Like differentiating from things that we've adopted in terms of how things should be or what the right way to have a
Yeah, I
business.
mean, but often you don't know, right? Because like you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes it's just like you start doing something and you realize what you like about it, and you're like, oh, nice, this is great. So I think it's like life experiences, and that's why we're wiser now at 36 than we were when we were at 26, and we thought we were so damn smart in our mid 20s. Remember that? We're like, oh man, I'm so smart, and like we weren't. But then I wonder if you and I have the same combo when we're in our mid 40s, being like, oh man, I remember us in that podcast. Watch that again. We thought we
Oh,
knew
for
everything.
sure. For sure, we're going to look
But
back and
I
go,
would say I have a lot more like humility, a lot more humble now than I was in my mid 20s, because I just thought like, oh man, you can make a ton of money. Like I could do it. Now I'm like, who cares? I just want to hang out with friends, have dinner parties, be a good dad, be a good husband, and yeah, enjoy it.
switching gears a little bit here. Next for you and Worthy Health. What are you excited about in terms of where
Yeah,
it's
so
going?
I guess our last thing to touch on here is Worthy Health itself. So we bought Osbon Canada, distribution rights in Canada, and that kind of led us into the urology world, where vacuum erection devices and traction devices are the forefront. And our business did well because doctors are limited in time and they want high quality products for their patients. So there's two things that came up: wait times and maintenance of care. And in a small way, the devices help address those. But in a way bigger way, it's like in Canada, we have this huge balloon of aging population and ailments, but we're not the amount of practitioners, surgery time, hospitals, they're not they're not increasing at the same rate. So it's this like inevitable problem that you could have seen coming, decades ago. But it's not much you can do about it when you have a public health system, you have a set budget, you have set tax money, and it's like, what are you gonna do? So we started to like, just from chatting with these urologists a lot, developing relationships with them. One of them rose to like one of them rose to the top, where he like saw what we were doing, and we had proposed our idea, which was to create a virtual platform where we would address these wait times. So we'd help the patient, and we would allow these urologists to see patients more efficiently. So it's essentially just a virtual platform for urologists to see patients. And that's what Worthy Health is. That's what we're building out right now. And we're going to start solely with erectile dysfunction, because it's a massive, massive segment here in Canada. And it's not, it's not super appealing for urologists who are, trained surgeons who have like a year wait list of all these ED patients who have gone to their GPs, maybe gotten a pill, haven't got the results they wanted. Now they want to see a urologist. And what happens now is it just creates this huge wait list. And then all the other conditions, it's like they get pushed back. So if we created a virtual platform, because a lot of these consults don't need to be done in person. Because now instead of seeing like 5 an hour, if they're coming physically to your clinic, they're parking, they're a couple minutes late, it's like, okay, let's do it virtually. You can see 10 an hour. Patient gets to see the doctor from the comfort of their own home. Doctor can see the patient either on their off days, in the evenings, whatever they want. Everything will get billed through public health as it's a consult, because it is. Everyone wins. So the patient wins. Instead of waiting a year to see a urologist about your erectile dysfunction, you only have to wait like whatever, a week. And as a urologist, instead of, you only get paid $80 for a consult, and that's not a ton when you have like your MOA, your rent, your own salary, all of that. Like now you get to do it from the comfort of your own home. You get to see way more. And the key is everything has to be seamless. And then we're building out we're working with our medical director, very specific questionnaires so that you can be even more efficient. You're not spending, 5 minutes asking the same questions. And all these urologists, and this is feedback from all the urologists that we know and work with now. It's like, I hate running through the same script, and that's my day. I saw like 30 ED consults today, and I just like checked a little box like I'm a robot. It's like, oh, let's have a robot do that. Let's bring technology, AI, which is a big buzzword, but let's bring technology to the urology space. And it's just like, again, what we talked at the very beginning, like starting small in a niche and seeing where it goes. So we're starting with ED for urologists and patients in Canada. That's what Worthy Health will be starting as. Yeah.
Very cool. Very exciting. This is a big question. What kind of legacy do you want to leave for Hudson, maybe future kids, through your work as a dadpreneur? And that might be through Worthy and the impact that has, or it might just be the lifestyle and principles that you're living by being a business owner and an entrepreneur, with how you have that set up.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you?
It's funny. I was actually thinking about that the other day. So it's a timely question. Yeah. I really like having purpose-driven work for sure. And Worthy to me is that. It's like, you're helping people, and it's like men's health. Because we'll hear from men who are like, haven't had an erection in like a year plus post prostate cancer, and the vacuum gets them back, and they're just like, they'll write an email or call, and they're like super stoked. Okay, awesome. And then that's, to me, it's amazing. Like I want to be adding value to the world in whatever I do. That being said, it's still secondary to me in terms of legacy. Like when I think of what Hudson, what I want him to be impressioned by, it's just like it's just being present, being a good person. My dad, like, he's involved with. I think just getting people together is the biggest thing. Making memories is always gonna be number one. Work is great, but it's definitely not my life. Like, and I don't know if it ever will be, and I'm okay with that. Like, I like what I do. I like having that purpose and like making money as a means to do other things. Though, for me, it's like prioritizing your health, getting friends together, connecting people, having a good time. That to me is the biggest. And I think the biggest gift you can give someone is like there is time and being present with them, and I get the most out of that. So I hope that would be the biggest thing.
What would be a question you'd want to ask other dadpreneurs? I'm going to be doing more of these interviews. What would you be curious about?
Other dadpreneurs. I mean, I'm always curious how other dadpreneurs find balance, how they, from like a significant specific, like how they, different things they do in terms of being a team with their wife, and when they have multiple kids, and how that all works, how they structure their days, how they can be more efficient, how they don't get lost in like the minutia of work, and because being an entrepreneur is hard, right? You got to be on, and there's certain things where I learned that I didn't want to do. I mentioned that the brick and mortar business, but there's certain things that are unavoidable, and it's like, I take a lot of vacation, because to me that's like, I mean, me, I'm very like structured in my day to day, but then on vacation, it's like, all right, like I am like off, I am like, present with with my wife or my friends or whoever, but I still got to be able to answer calls because, and that's why business got to a size where I had full coverage, which it isn't now. That call could be $1,000 sale. And I don't love it, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, well, what's the trade-off though? It's like, okay, if I just have to take a couple calls, here and there, it's not a huge deal. But as things scale up, I'm really curious of how dadpreneurs do it and like how they optimize different other things like customer service and the cost of it. Because it's such a thing. It's like, oh, I'd love to hire a staff member, but then it's like now I got to manage that staff member. I'm always thinking about that. It's like, okay, well, did maybe use contractors here and there, and maybe use like a chatbot. I don't know. I love talking about that with other entrepreneurs, and then of course dadpreneurs are like a whole other level because I think dadpreneurs it's even harder because you read those like business books. I remember like Tim Ferriss's book back in the day, all these guys, and it's like you can do this and this and this, but it's like you're not now it's easy to like have this like super optimized lifestyle and all that, but now I mean like our time isn't completely ours anymore. It's like
It's different.
so it's different. So you got to be really agile and you got to be nimble in a way that I never even realized was possible. Even like workouts talking about, it's like I was talking about workout in the morning or the middle of the day or the evening. That's also out of necessity because before Hudson was sleep trained, like you never really knew when you would get that little gap. And you didn't sleep all night. You're like, okay, now I gotta mix in a nap here. So it's just like, yeah. I'm always love talking with and hearing about dadpreneurs ways to be efficient and nimble and optimize their time.
So what I'm getting there is there's not a specific question. It's what are you actually doing on a daily basis? How are you dividing up your time? Just kind of hearing the actual examples.
Yeah. Or like my specific question was like, how do you structure your day? Yeah. With yeah. And do you have a lot of like leeway or do you keep it really rigid? And then I don't know. Yeah. That would be my question.
And I think that might be something I work towards is having like a little playbook or case studies of here are other ways that guys are breaking down their day and how they do it depending on the size of their business, number of kids they have, their role with their wife. I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
To have that snapshot. If you were to listen to this recording, let's say it's 6 months from now, maybe 2 years from now, what's the one thing that you'd want to remind yourself of the most?
Don't go back to the family biz. No, I'm just kidding. uh yeah, probably like nothing's guaranteed. And like yeah, we've had a good couple of months here. And you just gotta stay even keel. You can't get too like, oh, it's gonna be amazing. And then also when when you have some down months and we had some downtime, you just take it all in stride because like it's all about the reps. It's just like the gym. That's what it reminds. It's just like the gym. Like you're not gonna have this amazing workout, but the key is showing up and doing the reps. Even if it's just like a little bit. It's better to do a little bit each day than to not do anything and then just like, try and do a ton. And I've learned that with entrepreneurship. It's like just chip away.
Not sure if you've delved into the Alex Hormozy world.
Little bit.
All.
Just started to.
He's got a good one. The point of the game is to stay in the game.
Yeah.
And I think that very much ties to this notion of what we were talking about with health. It's like I want to be in the game and healthy and doing what I want to do when I'm 70.
Yeah.
And same thing with business. It's like if I can, not that I need to be in business when I'm 70, but staying in the game increases the odds that you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
Than trying to win big right away.
For sure.
Where can people find you and what you're up to?
Oh, on socials?
Socials or the website, or I always just leave it open for people to share. So if somebody's curious, they can hunt you down, ask you questions.
Yeah. I mean, like I have a website, but it's not really probably LinkedIn, to be honest. I don't check it. I say I check it like once a week, but if someone messages me on LinkedIn, I'll definitely see that within a week. And then other than that, like friends all have like my email and phone number. But yeah, probably LinkedIn because I don't really use. I deleted Instagram. Like I still have an account, but I don't have the app. Facebook, I'm like never on anymore. But yeah, LinkedIn's probably the only one that survived. Yeah, but I mean, always down to chat with other dadpreneurs, and yeah, I appreciate you facilitating this whole community. I think it's, I mean, I'm 5 months into it, but definitely a new entrepreneur and a new dad. So I'm a new dadpreneur.
Yeah, it's a ride.
It's
Well,
definitely a ride, man.
well, thanks for sharing your bit of your journey so far, and excited to see where Worthy goes.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it, Fife. Anytime, definitely keep you updated, and perhaps we can mix in a little cold dip in the next couple weeks here. Awesome. All right.